Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Now, this video here will be the most crucial video in modern history. Okay, the truth about Jesus Christ, the Messiah, Yeshua, God himself, our Father, our Lord, our Creator of all things. Okay, so whatever name we're using here, we're talking about the same person. Now, a lot of people are very judgmental about who Christ is or Jesus or etc., etc. His name is Yeshua. His name is this. His name is that. The first thing we have to look at, to be very clear, okay, if we go into the Bible, okay, we're told we're to be 120 years old. How many people in the Western society lives to be 120 years old on average? Moses was 145 years old. Elijah was 175. We still have people here today in certain civilizations that live to be 120 and 175 years old, but they're not in the Western civilization. Why not? Because the Western civilization is in post-human stage, and if they make it to 80 years old, they're very lucky. Why? Because they all die from stress-related diseases. Okay, 93% of people die every single day from stress-related diseases. 93% out of 300,000 every day die from stress-related diseases. Now, if you call that freedom, that's not freedom. That's not being free, right, from stress-related diseases. So today there's more stress-related diseases than ever in global history. And that keeps escalating. From 2% in 1960 to 54% by 2019, accelerating 7 times faster, fully confirmed. Now, that's the post-human stage. And you can see it for how you want. You can twist your own mind as much as you like. Post-human stage, right, we are warned in Revelation that every human being on earth will be deceived, and they will all be full of stress, psychological behavior, mental behavior, and today they live in a 5-sense world with their IQ, which is artificial intelligence, right, proven on documents. So now people think 95 to 99% of the time psychologically and mentally with a high IQ. It's a proven fact on documents. We can see it in DNA study and cellular study research. You only repair when you're asleep. The only time your body cells repair is when you're sleeping, in dream time. During the daytime, your body cells go in corruption, coercion, collusion from stress-related diseases. These are just known, pure facts. 93% of the Western civilizations takes drugs, right, because they can't cope in life, whether it be illicit or not. So that's the first thing we have to realize about life at the moment we're in. How many people live to be 120 years old on average and dies in peace? Show me where they are, because you can't in your whole Western civilization. And then people live in brain locked and all about it and says, oh, no, not me, I'm free, I'm awake, I'm woke. Really? Are you sure about that? Then why do you all die from stress-related disease by the time you're 80? Huh? You're lucky to make it to 100 years old if you're really lucky. Really, really lucky. Very few people do. Right? Let me tell you something. They're never God's children. All the ones that believe, they think they believe, it's not those. It never is. So who lives to be 120 plus years old? Very few people do. And they are in the indigenous people that lives by the laws of life, not by man's laws. We consider them to be outlaws because they live by the natural laws of life, right? The golden laws. You cannot live by both at the same time. It's not possible. You cannot comply to man's laws and live by the golden laws of life at the same time. It's not possible. That's the first thing the Western civilization needs to get through their thick skull, because the skull has voices in their mind, and that's been normalized. You know, your mind always plays tricks and games in you, and you always become your own worst enemy. Today, you are your own worst enemy today because you think too much. Trapped inside your mind on 5 sensitive negative fields with a high IQ that in fact only makes you good at what you do, but not intelligent. And people don't want to believe in that. I can understand that. It's a very uncomfortable thing to pay attention to. People think we're coming into the beginning of the end times. The beginning of the end times started 120 years ago. Right? In the 6th mass extinction, we've been stripped from our 6th sense for the 6th time. Nobody wants to listen to that. They don't want to listen to the truth or any facts whatsoever. They only want to live in their own narrative and their own perception that's been molded and shaped and engineered and programmed. Whatever your first perception is about anything psychologically and mentally is the one that you stay trapped inside. So you're not open-minded and you can't think outside the mind. You can only think with the mind. That's why you suffer from stress, fear, anxiety, confusion, frustration, delusion, and paranoia. Or you live in your own truth in some sort of comfort zone and run around telling people, I believe in my own truth. And that's what most Western civilization do, because they come to their own conclusion with reason, with voices in their mind. Jeremy Griffiths, the top bowler in the whole world today, has declared the voice in the mind's ultimate design from an extinction. Revelation warns you about the skull, right? The mark of the beast will be the voices inside your skull. It's always been known in human history, if you have voice in your mind, you're possessed by the devil. So now it's declared the voice in your mind is ultimately designed for human extinction. It's ultimately designed with a high IQ that's artificial intelligence, because it's 5 senses and negative fears. It's called the blue pill in the Matrix documentary. God first created the Matrix, right? The blue pill and the red pill is represented from the gnostic web of blue and red. We call it black and white, yin and yang, okay? In modern technology, right? With social engineering and programming, okay? We call it yin and yang, black and white, when in fact it's a gnostic web of blue and red. That's why the Matrix documentary is very crucial to you. Blue and red, not yin and yang, black and white. That's a Western civilization creation from their sophisticated knowledge. And everyone talks about yin and yang, black and white. Well, it represents the same thing. Okay? 69. Okay? You'll see the emblem of yin and yang is all twisted back to front, inside out, upside down, right, by the Western civilization. It's 6 and 9. The 6 is the dark side and the 9 is the light side. Okay? So let's get that part straight to begin with. Nearly every emblem of yin and yang across the world by the Western civilization is either upside down, sideways, or turned around the wrong way. So you can see how inverted the whole Western civilization really is by the symbol emblem of yin and yang. They haven't even got the concept right, because they all think they know better, and they'll just find a yin and yang emblem and put it up there and think they know everything about life, but they're all twisted in their mind when they do these things. And yet that's where you can see how twisted the Western civilization is alone, with that emblem alone. Just that emblem alone shows you that the Western civilization is completely twisted with fabrics of truth. They invent their own truth and live in their own truth. Jeremy Griffiths and 45,000 scientists have admitted, when you talk about 60,000 types of bipolar, 20,000 types of ADHD, every single document and every single book written about this, they come to their own conclusion on a marketing strategy to be competitive. There's only one thing that's bipolar and one thing that's ADHD. But you can go and read 60,000 different types and 20,000 different types of medication for it as well. So you can see that the whole Western civilization is completely inverted, with their own opinions, living in their own truth, and write the books with their own conclusion to be competitive on a marketing strategy. Okay, we've now discovered that everything in grammar and everything in our whole Western civilization, right, has been engineered, completely inverted with reverse psychology. Everyone has their own opinions, their own conclusions, and believe in their own truth across the whole world. We can go to any country in the world and we can grab grade 7 students from any school. And we know that this whole school across the nation, each classroom in grade 7 will be different because of teachers' opinions and teaching with their opinions rather than teaching with basic common sense on one structure. So now they all teach their students and their pupils with their own selfish, egotistical, judgmental, competitive opinions. So we can grab a grade 7 students from one class that are totally different than grade 7 students from another class. That goes to show you how twisted the Western civilization is and their whole educational system is, because it's the people that's twisted inside their mind. That's why in post-human stage, every single person will be deceived except for the elect, and only the witness will teach the resurrection. Nobody believes in that. No, they all think they're chosen. They all think they're awake. They all think they're awake in the whole world, and they don't think anyone's been deceived whatsoever. Every human being on earth thinks they're awake, and they're awoke, and they think they're chosen. You know why? Because they're weak, spineless, sensitive, and highly emotional cowards, right? They're godless, immoral creatures because the spine don't work, which is a Neuralink, which is Jacob's ladder. Okay? The chakra is your gut feeling survival mode. The very preservation mode for life that activates the chakra with a shiver in your spine, Jacob Slater. So your Neuralinks fires up your body cells with like a meth effect, because meth is what you create in your adrenochrome with the accretion and the oxidization, which is the Christ oil. The Christ oil accretion is an oxidization that releases certain molecules into your serotonin with the correct pH level. And when the correct pH level is conducting to the right energy by conducting the right frequencies, those frequencies is 8 tools that are your quantum mechanics, 8 frequencies. Only a spiritual gnostic mastermind can explain this the best. And there is no gnostic masterminds in the world today, right? Everyone thinks they're a mastermind with their high IQ, right? And they're very literal people and very psychological. The whole world's become literal and psychological. That's why they revised the Bible 2,010 times, because they become more mental and more psychological and more egotistical and more competitive non-stop. So they continue to revise the Bible. So when I came here, I never used the Bible in my life for that very reason. I was told not to. I was told never to listen to any religions or any Bible whatsoever, because everyone's twisting the fabric truth in their own narrative and pick the paragraph that suits them. Living in a little tiny narrative, and they can't face the real truth in the whole world. It's been declared by the top scholars in the world that 97% of all Christianity and belief systems in the whole world is completely polarized and hypnotized state, and no one's reborn. It's a known fact. Only people who die, cross over and come back are the ones that are reborn, right? They're going through a rebirth where they break free from amnesia, and you cannot break free from amnesia unless you die. Unless you die and cross over and come back, then you realize the voice in your mind's not you, right? Not you. Then you think outside the mind in the 9. 69 yin and yang. 6 is the dark tunnel where you're in all the rabbit holes and stuck with so many multiple chains wrapped around you that you depend on so much. So you depend on everything in the world that you love so much and every educational system and documents. And documents is where I can manipulate you the easiest. With my psychological behavior, where I'll give you my opinions. And that's been twisted in the fabric of truth so much now for 700 years of reverse psychology. First of all, the first Bible written 640 years ago, the scholar reports approved 80 books, but there's only 66. So when you have 14 books missing here for the most important information, right, that you need to understand, you have no idea what you're doing, okay? They removed 17 years of Jesus' life, right? From 7 to 24 years old, you cannot read anything about Jesus between 7 and 24 years old. They removed that of the very footsteps he wanted you to follow. And when they removed the most important footsteps that he wanted you to follow from the Bibles, every Bible in the world, you don't know what they are. You just think you know, okay? Well, I want you to consider a few things that are very dramatic, right? Very dramatic, okay? Everyone thinks Jesus Christ is about love and compassion with chocolates and roses. Everyone's been polarized and hypnotized. This is where I'm going to prove to you that the whole world's completely inverted and completely mentally insane. So easy, it's not funny. So easy, it's not funny. And it's important that you pay attention. Everyone thinks that Jesus Christ just hung on the cross, right? And he hung himself, right? And sacrificed himself so that everyone was going to be saved that believe in him. That's a load of BS. It's an absolute load of BS. The Bible makes it very clear in Revelation. You must go through the rebirth. You must be in the image. It says that in the Bible very loud and clear. You must return to your primal state. You must resurrect back into the primal state to be in that image. If you're not in that perfect image, and I do mean that perfect image, don't think for 1 minute you're going to be saved. Because it's very clear. If you're not returning to your primal state in the image you're created in, you will not be saved. Now, I'm going to ask you a simple question. Christ said, you must live by the vineyard rule equally. And you must live by 2 simple commandments to love one another and bear one's burdens in flesh. You must live up the tree of life. That's living in the 9, that's living outside the mind, in the light, right? You can't do that and live by man's laws from the tree of knowledge of all things good and evil at the same time. You can't live by both laws at the same time because you become two-faced. And when you're two-faced, you're in two minds, lukewarm, okay? Either you're ice cold, red hot, or lukewarm. And you know what? You can take your pick here. But we know that 99.9% of Western civilization is only lukewarm. It doesn't mean you're evil, but you don't qualify to go through the resurrection, to go into the tree of life where everything's going to be perfect in the Christ image. It is your duty to be in the Christ image. It is your duty to resurrect and to be reborn. It takes 7 years to master your mind, so your mind no longer masters you with voices inside your mind, with all the decisions that you come to and all the conclusions you come to. That's not negotiable. Never has been, never was. But for some reason, the whole Western civilization thinks it is. They think they can just live in their own bubble. Let me tell you something. You all think you're the 99% and 1% is evil, right? Well, you are in the 99%. That's lukewarm, right? There's only 1% of humanity here that's in the Christ image today. They have 24 chromosomes. The rest has 23. Christ had 24 chromosomes, and you only have 23. You can go and get a DNA study done. Your body starts going corruption, corruption every single day. You're controlled by stress, fear, anxiety, confusion, frustration, delusion, and paranoia, right? Those are the facts, right? And if you don't understand this, then you deceive yourself, because every person in the world will be deceived to one degree or another. Only the elect will not be deceived. Only the witness will teach the resurrection. Now, who's the witness? You will only know the witness by the teaching. You will only know the witness by the teaching and the tools that he has. Now, you can live in whatever mindset you want, that you've been designed and engineered into to be soft, weak, spineless cows, okay, without Jacob's ladder working, right? Without Jacob's ladder working means your Neuralink, means your spine, okay? You're a spineless, godless, immoral creature all over the earth, okay? And if you don't face that fact, you can't do nothing about it. If you think you know everything about life and you think you're awake and you think you're the one chosen, you have zero to gain, because then you go into brain-locked denial, a species in denial, as written in the book of Species in Denial, okay? Species in denial. 93% of Western civilization is an absolute species in denial. They die from stress-related diseases every day. They take drugs to numb themselves and they can't cope. They're lucky to make it to 80 years old. Known fact, and you know it's true. You can't lie to yourself. You can't deceive yourself. But for some reason, the voice in the mind controls you that much that it can do that. So you're possessed by the devil across the whole world because you normalize that. The devil is the voices in your mind. It's considered to be dark forces instead of being the light forces. That's why they call it yin and yang, dark and black. Black and white, okay? So you live in a dark tunnel of all the rabbit holes, and you're going through the rabbit holes which multiple chains wrapped around you that you depend on. You can't stand on your own 2 feet in your own sovereignty, and Mother Nature doesn't work with you. So the oldest and wisest civilization in the world, they bear the right fruit, because their fruit, right, they create 10 times more fruit with 10 times more nutritional value than all the stuff that you consume today. All your products that you consume, you depend on so much, comes from 10 companies, and 93% of all the products that you eat only has 40 to 90% of nutritional value. So you're completely disconnected from life, nature, and all the things you're in harmony with, because you don't bear the right fruit. You bear the fruit of Baal. Baal is the Babylonian beast system that you depend on so much through a marketing strategy. Okay, greed, power, temptation, money, and material things that you were warned about through Babylon, right? You live by the Babylonian beast. You live by modern technology, modern gadgets with images, and you're polarized into them the most and have been throughout your whole life. All you want is your normal back and the only normal that you know that caused the problem to begin with, okay? You've been stripped from your sixth sense since 1921. That's 100 years. You've been stripped from your sixth sense for more than 120 years, and that's your instinctive behavior, to think instinctively and think outside the mind. That's your spiritual thinking, right? It's about being spiritual. It's not about being psychologically mental with a high IQ and justifying what you believe in and living your own bubble, some sort of comfort zone, and then using that language, using your high IQ with sophisticated knowledge and science and evolutional theories that aren't really fact. You've been designed into that for 120 years. In fact, you've been designed in reverse psychology for your educational system for 300 years. Inside the timeline of deception for 700 years. Darshal has been deceiving you now for nearly 700 years. You are in the final 24 years, right? The final 24 years, the 27-year war against the Antichrist from 220 to 247. I've given you full dates, documents, and everything to back this up in all my education. Now, whatever mindset you live in is entirely up to you. But we're going into collapse around 227 for 20 years. That's why they put in Agenda 247 by Trump and Agenda 247 by the WF. Okay, the New York climate clock went up in 220 with a 7-year countdown from 220 to 227. You just don't pay attention because you think you know better. You felt the darkness come over the planet in 220. You felt everything change, and you've seen how humanity's behaving ever since. Everyone's lost in the world, and everyone thinks they're chosen in the world, and everyone thinks they're awake in the world or woke, right? The biggest communication breakdown in global history. Havana syndromes all over the world in 96 countries where people losing their vertigo, right? Losing their minds, right? With the human conditioning. Zombie viruses with peer reports in hospital, the same thing, where they lose their minds, okay? Everyone losing their minds all over the world, okay? Body snatchers with peer reports in hospital, same thing. Everyone's lost their sixth sense. It's reported in 1999 in post-human states on the 27th September that you've lost your sixth sense in post-human states, but you don't believe in it. You just keep going fast track into nowhere. As a result from that, it got 5 times worse by 2019 and accelerating 7 times faster confirmed. Okay? And that's what's happening all over the world. 99% of people are possessed by the devil. Okay? That's the way it is. It's the way it is. And if you don't understand this and you can't face the truth and you can't handle it, then you can't do anything about it neither. Right? That's entirely up to you. But don't sit here and tell me that you're in the Christ image. You don't live by the Vineyard rule equally. You don't live by 2 simple commandments. And when you live by that in your natural organic motor skills, and you have faith in your biological genes to use your natural organic motor skills by thinking outside the mind, you're not trapped inside your mind. You're trapped inside your mind all over the world. All right? You're trapped inside your mind on 5 sensitive negative fields, which is the blue pill. The blue pill is psychologically and mental with a cold blood, reptilian blood, because your front cortex is the reptilian brain. It's the size of a watermelon, right? And your pineal gland's completely shut down and you can't even conduct. That's known all over the world. You know, Western civilization goes into education and all those social media platforms about the chakra, right? Jacob's ladder, and the Christ to all the third eye. They talk about information to fact check, Google yourself. But they're not in the Christ image. They wouldn't have a clue what they're talking about. They just have tons of information and fact check, Google themselves and live in some sort of comfort zone with brand new belief system with scientific evolutional theories and not real facts, right? So they don't have the real ability to do these things. Your gut feeling is survival mode. That's your chakra. The shiver in your spine is Jacob's ladder, right? Well, your Neuralink fires up your body cells to be alert, alive, awake, and aware. 90% of people, right, accuse me of being on drugs. Americans can't understand what I'm saying because they're completely gone in the head, right? Completely gone in the head when they can't understand their own language. They think I talk too fast. They accuse me of being on drugs all the time because they're not in their primal state. They're dormant and brain dead stupid at the same time with a high IQ. It's just a known fact. The whole Western civilization is no different. You see, indigenous people can understand word for word that I say really easy, and they're not even English-speaking people. So it goes to show that those who think instinctively can understand what I'm saying perfectly correct. But Western civilization can't understand a word I say because they're completely inverted and they're brain dead, stupid and dormant and polarized to their screens the most. They've been engineered the most on screens, scientific evolutional theories, not facts, Hollywood spinners, and live in massive, massive bubbles all over the world. And they die the fastest from gene defects and mental disorders. The Westerners do. It's a known fact, right? Most of them drink themselves to half to death, right? Take all the products that kills their pineal gland the most and consumes all the wrong products because they can't cope in life at all. They're totally disconnected from life, nature, and the things in harmony with and pretend that they're chosen and human at the same time all over a social media platform. But they can't function in real life with their own family, loves and friends. They can't even keep them together. They lie that much. It's unbelievable because they're so sensitive and highly emotional. So, you know, you're in the post-human stage, and if you think you're in the Christ image and you think Christ just died for you so you can do what you want, you must be pretty crazy, right? You must be pretty mental because you depend on the governments, you depend on your system, and you love the Babylonian beast system. You love your cops and politicians, and you love your weapons as well. Who loves weapons the most? Americans. Who has the highest mental disorders in the world? Americans. Who has the third highest violent rates in the world? Americans. Who's just escalated 66% in violence in the last 3.5 years? Americans. 66% escalating in violence. Go Google yourself. 66% increase in violence and mental behavior in America in 3.5 years. And that's where the statistics really are. The highest mental disorders in the world is Brazil. The second highest is Colombia. The third highest violence all over the world is America, escalating 66%. You know why? Because they're 66%, 6.6% in the wrong image. That's what they are. That's why the sixes come up like this in America. That's why all these things are the universal language, that are the solid signs. So the 6666 is Americans, right? That's why that comes up like this in the time that we're in today. Because American stands for 6666. They are the 666 Netherlands, okay? They are the Western white civilization that comes through the bloodline of Cain, right? They take 63% of the global economy. They set up the marketing strategy and reverse psychology through the educational system through the Rockefellers. And they deceive you the most through NASA, and NASA is Nazi, and NASA stands in the Bible as the devil himself. Okay, they sit at Geneva Convention with the 10 kings, right? With Garvey at the top, Bill Gates. Okay, there's the 10 kings you warned about that controls 93% of everything you consume in this world. Okay, all set up by NASA, which is Satan, and Satan would dwell in Geneva where they build a CERN machine with a 27 kilometer long CERN machine. 27 is a sign. 27 stands for the Holy Spirit, divine light, and it's a sign. 27 kilometers long, okay? We are polos are. God of creation, destruction. We should be at the front, God of creation, destruction. That's why Klaus Schwab says we're going to create our own gods with God, and they have the power of God of creation, destruction. That's what Harari, the prophet, says, born in the Bible, born in Israel. That's what Obama calls the great prophet. So you know who Obama is. You know exactly who Obama is when he calls him the great prophet. Warned in the Bible would be born in Israel. That's Harari that says we're going to create our own gods, right? We're going to create our own gods. We have the divine power, creation, destruction with mRNA technology. mRNA technology is registered as an electronic magnetic device. Iodine, graphene, oxide, hydroxide gel, which comes from iodine crystal in methamphetamine, magic paste from the days of Nimrod. That's why Bill Gates holds up his favorite book of statistics, how to manipulate the whole human population with mRNA technology, because I know who he is. When he came into this world at 24 years old in 1980, on world stage media, right, he became the richest man in the world without any credentials whatsoever. They said, Bill Gates, how did you think of all this? You had no education, couldn't read and write, you're illiterate. He said, whatever I can't think of, I hire the person that can. The most sophisticated mastermind in the world that sits at the UN today as the most powerful man without one piece of paperwork and has immunity to absolutely everything. He owns worldbank.org and Klaus Schwab is the CEO for the WF, which is worldbank.org. So he's the most powerful man in the world that's deciding everything through Google. And Google set up the Hive back in the early 80s with Uncle Fester to create methamphetamine in the underground world and set up a structure by NASA in Ormeau, Brisbane, Australia, where they sent 10 ton amphetamine to Amsterdam, 10 ton to Florida every month for 14 years straight from 1980 to 1994. You see, Hitler brought that drug in 1944. M became methylbenzoketone and 14 products with synthetic opiates in it. Those synthetic opiates and products are all over the streets today. In fentanyl all over America, it kills 200,000 people every year. Okay, so they're all zombies in America, where America set up a structure with NASA in Mexico to take cocaine out and start producing meth in 2008. And they produce 3,300 tonne a year and bring more than 2 tonne of meth into America every single day and feed the whole public. 98% of Americans are on methamphetamine, whether it be illicit drugs or not. It's a known fact. They consume it like lollies because they can't conduct without it. Why can't they conduct without it? Well, they can't use their sixth sense. And when they can't use their sixth sense, they can't create the accretion, which is called the Christ store. They've always been feeding on these products since the days of Noah, right? Since the days of Noah. Gilgamesh used graphene oxide gold to conduct with to an outside influence on his reality. Okay, so outside influence from another parallel world. It's called the fifth dimension. Now, the whole world is told to think with the fifth dimensional thinking, right? With a high IQ, with 5 senses. And that's what the whole world fell into with new light workers, conscious workers, and everything like that through Silicon Valley and NASA. You see, Satan will get you like Jesus Christ. He would pretend he's Jesus Christ. He would come across heavenly with love and compassion with chocolates and roses. So the whole world thinks that Jesus Christ is about love and compassion with chocolates and roses, right? To live in a bubble in a comfort zone, to be sensitive and weak and highly emotional. And the whole sophisticated system through educated knowledge, right? Silicon Valley is design and propaganda through every single thing in the world today. The greatest deception ever created was to mold people and condition them into the human condition so they suffer from stress-related diseases non-stop and live in their own mindset. On love and compassion with chocolates and roses because they're sensitive and highly emotional all over the world. Who's the most sensitive creatures in the world? Americans. Most mental disorders. Who has the longest sentences in the world? Americans. Who just drive by shooting everyone in the back all the time? Americans. Who has 17 million people living on less than $2 a day in the streets? Americans. Who has a slavery system in Mexico that lives in 40 million people lives on less than $10 a day? Americans. Go to American hardware stores. Who's out there, right, every single morning by the hundreds working? Mexicans are. The slavery system, because America drives the slavery system the most. They put China into poverty and slavery for many, many years, right? Then they made the communists rich and kept them in slavery with 3/3 of the populations in massive slavery, right? That's what they drive. They drive Africa into slavery where cobalt, 16,000 applicants are digging cobalt with their bare hands, and Elon Musk is the one that computes that market. He's the one that's putting up SpaceX with all the satellites with WF, right? They're all monsters in that world, right? All monsters, and everybody loves Elon Musk and all these people, and they're monsters in this world, right? They're all monsters in the world, like Joe Rogan. He's another monster. Everybody loves Joe Rogan, one of the most famous people in the world. But does he believe in Christ? Nah. He's a selfish, egotistical monster just like everybody else is that puts ticket on himself. And it's not that I've got something against Joe Rogan, but he's also another deceiver who lives in his own truth and thinks he's something special. And so does everybody else in the world, don't they? Don't they? Do you think God works with monsters like this? Do you think he works with the Babylonian beast system that uses all these tools everywhere and debunks and debates every single tool they constantly can? They're the mental creatures. With their high IQ, they think they're all special in this world, don't they? Don't they? Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. The whole Western civilization thinks they're very special, don't they? Well, tell me something, right? Was Jesus about love and compassion with chocolates and roses? Is that what you believe? Is that what you all believe down there? Every single person in America and all their pastors and priests who thinks they're all special are molded the same way. They're all liars down there. They're not chosen by God. They do not live by the vineyard rule equally. They don't live by two similar commandments, none whatsoever. They don't live by the 10 commandments, and they fall in place automatically when you live of the tree of life. Like the Australian Aboriginals, the wisest civilization and the oldest civilization in the world, that's always been living on the tree of life by the vineyard rule equally. They only have elders that lead the flock, shepherds that lead the flock. Okay? So they live of the tree of life, right, in the promised land. They were sent to the promised land after Atlantis collapsed, and they rebooted the whole Western civilization. You don't believe in that because you're brain dead. Okay? It's Americans that create Zeus, Enlil, aliens because they're created by them, the fallen angels, when they fell in Mount Hermon. That's who they praise. That's what everything the White House stands for, and everything at the Vatican, and everything their whole Western civilization. They praise Zeus. That's their forefather, the fallen angels, the white Western civilization. That's why it's important you understand when we go back into human history, we have 5 Adam and Eve stories. This is the 6th one. Okay? It's the 6th Adam and Eve story. Okay? So it's important you understand that when the fallen angels fell, the Western white civilization with their great gods, right? Their great gods from the pyramid days and Babylonian days, their great gods that created the Western civilization. Cain was the first Netherland born who killed Abel, right? Cain was the first Western civilization Netherland born who killed Abel. The bloodline you have to watch, recorded in biblical history, the bloodline of the serpents, right? Of the Netherlands, the fallen angels, right? So when they became fallen angels, they created mankind. They created white civilization with the Netherlands. Because up until then, they were only dark people, right? Dark people. Enoch was black as the ace of spades. He was an African from Ethiopia. And the Ethiopian Bible is the only real Bible. And the oldest Bible in the world is 2.5 foot thick that had to go underground for 1,400 years because Western civilization molded their Bibles to suit them with a white Jesus. And Jesus was also dark. So that's why everyone's deceived so much and they think Jesus was like Middle Eastern, okay? He was half white, half black, and they try to make it he's white. Every movie made he's white, right? He was black as the ace of spades. Moses was black as the ace of spades. Abraham was black as the ace of spades. Jacob was black as the ace of spades. David was black. Every movie made, they're white. Every movie made by the Western civilization, they're white. They're liars and they're monsters in this world that lies non-stop. In every movie ever made, it's a lie. Right? It's a lie. And you know it's a lie. There's plenty of history about Jesus being black. But he's always portrayed to be white, right? Because Western civilization tries to put ticket themselves and confuse the whole population. They've done a damn good job of that too. Damn good job. Who's the mental people with a massive cortex the size of a watermelon? The Western civilization. Who has 23 chromosomes? The Western civilization. Who has 24? The Australian Aboriginals. They have a different bloodline. So the Australian Aboriginals is the oldest and wisest people and the most primitive in the world as well. So what happened in the old Sumerian tablets and the Babylonian tablets from the fallen gods and the fallen angels? When Zeus first started to create the Western civilization, what does it say in there? It says when they come here, Man was already here primitive. Mankind was already here primitive. So they took the Western white civilization and created a marketing strategy in a slavery system. In a slavery system, right, with psychological behavior, and inverted them completely with psychological behavior to grow a front cortex the size of a watermelon and shut the whole pineal gland down. And everyone thinks they know about it, but they all lie. They lie. Enoch built the pyramids and levitated the stones, and no Western civilization has that kind of power. That's why they moved the 12 apostle books, because the 12 apostles, Enoch was a canon of the Bible. Enoch was a canon of the Bible. Enoch 1:8, Enoch would protect the elect. So when Jesus says the teacher who would teach the resurrection, Enoch would protect the elect. Written there. That's why they moved this book, so you don't know who the witness is. But it's right there in one sentence. Enoch will protect the elect. Who is Enoch? He's the teacher of righteousness. He's a Medarant. He's a king of all kings. He was the most favored man of God that walked with God for 350 years. And the angels, the orbs of light that came to the kings, that came to Moses, the fiery chariots. You see, Moses went up in the fiery chariot, and you don't know that. Elijah went up in the fiery chariot, right? Enoch went up in the fiery chariot. Jesus, when he resurrected, went up in the fiery chariot. Okay, the 12 disciples, 11 of them was cut to pieces. John went to jail for 12 years and wrote Revelation in prison and brought the truth to the masses from the cave of prisons. He came out of the cave of prison with the truth to the masses. Okay, and John disappeared because he went up in the fiery chariot as well. Why did the removal is? What is the fiery chariot? Tic-tac UFOs, they call them today. They come from inner space, outer space, and the space in between, from different dimensions and parallel worlds. Tic-tac UFOs, right, are all over Wycliffe Well and the Alice Springs of Australia. That's where the most photos come from and the most tic-tac UFOs in the whole world. That's where they reside the most. So tic-tac UFOs, as you can see on YouTube with the Min lights, the Min lights is the orbs of light. They send white men into the abyss. You can see that on 1,000 videos. But then you'll find that certain people have a massive relationship. The Aboriginals call them the Watchers. The Aboriginals in biblical history calls them the Watchers, their ancestry tools, right? The ones that watch over them, right? The Min light travels with trucks and cars in the outback Australia for 500, 600, 700 kilometres. Millions of people, thousands of people have seen the Min lights and are very familiar with the Min lights. But they can't get near them because they send white men in the bush because white man crazy, white man God's crazy. They don't like white Western civilization, known fact. That's why all these things are suppressed from you so much. Pine Gap, Area 51, Australia, right, is where NASA headquarters and CIA quantum mechanic computer sits, where all the frequencies run from with 200 frequencies. Every frequency that designs you on reverse psychology. Every satellite field, every single television station, and telecom's the most powerful universal telephone lines, right? All running from one location in NASA Area 51 Australia through the quantum computer. You're all being deceived that much, you have no idea. They lie to you that much, that's why they oppress Northern Territory of Australia, and there's only 250,000 people in a place that's 30 times the size of Denmark, okay, where they suppress things the most. That's why the military has their air base up there with the Top Gun pilots in the top of Darwin, where they get trained. SAS soldiers and the top elite soldiers in the world in Western Australia, in the outback, in the most positive fields on earth, where they think instinctively and they use the tools of thinking instinctively instead of mental. And they design the whole population on reverse psychology, to think mentally and psychologically, right? So they know their superpowers that they get from those fields. They know that there's the most positive fields on earth, right? It's where the Aboriginals live. National Geography made a special, the Alice in 2007, right, with the most positive atmosphere on earth that will cool your heart further from the promised land. The most positive atmosphere on earth from the promised land, right, that God protects with the Min lights, with the Min lights, the orbs of light. That's been there for 6,000 years while you live in your psychological mental civilization. Your psychological mental civilization, where you lie to people all the time, and you live in your psycho programs, and you all think you're special out there with a high IQ, and you've got a massive watermelon in your scone, right? 5 cents in negative fields, and you live in so much negativity, and 95 to 99% of the time, and you're not human, declared in post-human stage. You're not human, declared on documents and cellular study research. You are not human. You are not human. You're in post-human stage, declared on documents. You are not human, and you lie to yourself. You're not human. You can't compare yourself with people that live to be 180 years old, that has no mental disorders, gene defects, no blood clots, no myocarditis, no cancer, none of these things that you suffer from. That's why you poison with alcohol. That's why you steal the black generation through the Royal Commissions, right, and all the generations to poison them with all your systems. Because that's what Western civilization does to all the indigenous people, the ones that live to be the oldest and the most compassionate, loving human beings on earth, and the most spiritual. They destroy their pineal gland. Just the same way they destroy yours, right? So you can't think straight with your high IQ and think that you're something special, but you all do, don't you? Well, that's God's children. That's Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve are primitive ones that you don't like so much, that you think are primitive, when in fact you're mental, right? And you depend on nothing but materialistic things and modern gadgets and images and social media platform and all your beautification, your cars, your materialistic things, your big fat giant houses, and you consume 40 times more than what they do per capita, right? In 45 years alone, you consume 7 times more than what they do per capita. You consume the planet up and eat it up until it goes into massive extinction, right? And then you live in brain locked and all about at the same time because you're monsters in this world. You don't support the Aboriginals. You don't support people in the streets suffering. You support your marketing strategy. You support your Babylonian beast system, and you love it. You love it. You love getting spoiled rotten and dying and going in a reincarnation trap and keep coming back because you can't even wake up from amnesia, can you? No, you can never discover you are because all you are is a personality. You're just a personality. That's all you are, a personality. A destructive personality in your forefather's image. And you follow your forefather's footsteps every single day. And you think God works for you? Are you mentally insane? Let me tell you the truth about Jesus Christ. He was very confronting and he hated the system. He couldn't stand the system. Right? You didn't find him in a church with a Bible, did you? No, you didn't. Never. He taught in the paddocks and he said the kingdom is your church, not the church, didn't he? Didn't he go up to the Pharisees and pastors and says, you are in Baal's image. You hurt my people on the streets who suffer all the time from your dysfunctional behavior. You don't live with the law of life. You don't live with the tree of life. You live with the tree of knowledge non-stop with your psychological, egotistical, literal behavior and your high IQ to mold everything. They thought he's an outlaw because he could do what he could do. They thought Jesus was an outlaw because he could do what he could do. But they didn't want you to know. So they hunted him down and killed him, didn't they? And put him on the cross. And then they drained his blood to make sure he couldn't resurrect because he had that power. Right? Didn't he bring the 12 disciples through the same adverse effect? Didn't he teach them for 7 years to break free from amnesia so they could do what he can and more? Isn't that why they hunted down and cut them to pieces as well? But they didn't catch John because he's in prison. And John was the only one that lived and went up in the fiery chariot after he came out of the cave of prison with the truth to the masses. Right? So who was John? Who was John really? Do you know who John was? Do you actually know who he was? No, you don't know who he was, but he's not who you think he were. John the Baptist came out of prison with fire coming out of his mouth, mad as a cut snake. Who was he? Elijah resurrected. Wasn't Osiris resurrected from Nimrod? Didn't he resurrect into the all-seeing eye of Horus? Yep. Didn't Jesus wake up from amnesia at 24 years old and discover who he was? Didn't he tell you the bloodline he come from? Didn't he tell you that in the Bible, the bloodline he come from, that he was resurrected? So you say resurrection doesn't exist in the whole biblical history and all this, and all the Christians all around the world that says, oh, resurrection's not real. Really? That's because you don't resurrect. You're stuck on a reincarnation trap. That's because you're stuck on a reincarnation trap in your white Western civilization. Aboriginals don't get stuck on a reincarnation trap. They know it for a fact. They know that we all do. They say, white man crazy, white man God's crazy, and they keep coming back like idiots. And they keep going the same footsteps and follow their father's footsteps non-stop. When we first came to Australia 250 years ago, when the British soldiers came there, they had a universal language. So when you think critically and the voice tells you to do it, and the other one tells you not to, it doesn't even give you a straight answer, right? Doesn't even give you a straight answer. So you're two-faced, you're lukewarm, right? You don't know what to believe in. So you just come to your own conclusion with reason, whatever you decide on the day. But the voice will always tell you to do it, and the other one tells you not to. So when you convey feelings to thoughts, it's the same thing. But your whole scientific knowledge, through your sophisticated engineering, through teachers, that teaches you that you're talking to yourself, and if you're talking to someone else, you have psychosis. That's what your psychiatrists say because they normalize it, because they listen to the devil that controls them. So they normalize the voice that talks to them because that's their forefathers, right? Atheism is mentalism. Mentalism is Kabbalism. Kabbalism and egotism, right? Which causes socialism, fascism, and communism. It's all the same thing. It's all the same thing. It's Kabbalizing the egotism. And all Western civilization is mentalist and egotism because they're all atheists and lie about it at the same time. They're not reborn. They're just lies in this world. Only the people in the streets are reborn that dies. Only people that take drugs and numbing themselves because they're possessed by the devil knows that. They know they have demons in their mind. So the people that rejects the demons in the mind, take drugs and numbing themselves, that can't cope, are the ones that knows they have the demons in the mind. But the Western civilization normalizes that and believes they don't have demons in the mind. So they're possessed by the devil because that is their forefathers' footsteps. And that's the whole Western civilization. That's the whole lot of them. I don't care what you say, right? God knows the truth. The witness knows the truth. And you know how you know the witness? By the tools. Not by the way you think mentally to judge the platform, to judge my red hair and freckle, to judge my clothes, because you were told I'll come with fire out of my mouth. You were told I'll come like a thief in the night. You were told I'll come in raggedy clothes. You were told I'll come from the cave of prison with the truth of the masses. You were told I'll write the book that unfolds evidence perfectly. The testimony of a drug lord reborn. The testimony of a drug lord reborn. A drug lord, right? I'm the king wizard in the world that brought whiz out. What is whiz? Go and look in Australia what whiz is. My drug is on every single testing centre and across the whole country, right? Across the whole country, right? So I already created my mark on earth here where I took the highest death toll of cocaine down, the highest death toll of gang killing and violence, and domestic violence that took kids into a marketing strategy where they go into homes to be raped and bashed. When I checked the standards here and changed the statistics from the highest level in 1996 to the lowest by 2000, it forced the Royal Commission to pay out, right? The majority of people that goes to prison and prostitutes for going through this marketing strategy where they take 3 times more taxpayers' money off you to put them in prison, right? By raping and bashing them. That is a Western civilization chaos document in the Law and Order document where they create this kind of chaos with drugs, right? They create it with drugs. They create it and put it into the underground world through NASA, and they create every drug going into the underground world through NASA. NASA's the one that spills this into the streets, right? And designs the whole system to do this. That's why Google put up the Hive on 160 countries across the world right, from 1984 to 2012, because Bill Gates is the one that created the chaos document. The Book of Statistics with Minimal Technology is the Book of Chaos revised, which they used in Babylon, and that's how you know. He was one that set up the Hive on Google in 160 countries with Uncle Fester, right, to teach the whole world how to cook meth in the underground world, right, with 280 products, right, with 2 top scientists in all my Brisbane, Australia. He's the one that done this. He's the one with NASA and Pentagon that done all this, right? And he done this from a very young age. So who do you think he is? It's very easy to see who he is, right? So he was the one that set up the structure, okay? So when we got international pressure from Europe in 1994 and shut the Boris case down, we took over the 2 top scientists and reversed their plan because it was Hitler's plan. You didn't believe in it. No, you didn't. And you still don't, because you're all mental out there, and you stand for NASA, and you stand for Hitler, and you stand for the devil. And that's who you support every day when you turn a blind eye to all these things. Well, let me tell you something. You may not like this, but these are realities. In 2014, we exposed the truth, right? Hitler's plan with 14 synthetic products with opiates in it, right? Meth with opiates in it. We exposed them, Channel 7 News, in every testing centre across Australia, right? We have 14 products with synthetic opiates and not on one report, which means the whole government, every testing centre was covering it up, right? So when we stopped their plan in 1996 and brought it to the lowest level by 2030 years, we were put in prison for corruption, under corruption, right? My own arresting officer says, I envy you, Kim. I know you've been kissed in the dick by an angel. When I look at the work all over the country, plummeting down to the lowest it was in 30 years, and now I can see they want to put you away and stop and continue the marketing strategy. So he retired. But his own affidavit, subject to perjury, admits to this. He stands in my second court mention and says it's all corruption. You can read the documents. So, you know, they set up a marketing strategy. They put me away in prison for 10 years. When I come out of prison, we scraped up all the products on the underground world and we brought it to Channel 7 News on the mainstream media, and it's exposed that these drugs were not on one testing centre, which means the whole government system and the whole court system on their analysation reports from 380 testing centres was not reporting this. The same 380 testing centres that my product was on back in 2000, okay, that stopped this process. The same testing centres were now controlled because of that. Because they saw my drug was all over the country and changed the circumstances, they then took control of that over the 10 years I was in prison, right, and the marketing strategy. So they put the 14 products into the underground world with synthetic opiates in it, and we exposed that on Channel 7 News, backed up with rock-solid evidence. That caused the Prime Minister in Australia to do a mandatory urine test on the government's authorities and defence force, and 78% were positive. Now, what do you do about that when that's exposed all over the world news, on mainstream media all over Australia? You turn a blind eye. But it's been exposed that Mexican cartel are tied up with 7 companies across the world of pseudoephedrine companies. And those pseudoephedrine companies put the opiates inside pseudoephedrine that's deemed to be dangerous. And then they take chemical waste down of 3,300 tonne every year with a 10-year contract. A 2-hour documentary made on TV about this, right? People that actually care. But people still turn a blind eye. So NASA set this up with these companies across the world to put opiates inside the ephedrine, the pseudoephedrine. And then they produce 3,300 tonne every year. They send it all over the world, okay? They send 1.5 tonne into Australia all the time, but we bust them. We bust them non-stop, and we take them down. We took all the Chavel cartel down, right, with their cartel. When they came into Australia, we took them down, right? The biggest mafia guy in the whole world that's twice the size of Chapo is the Asian mafia guy. Australia went to Holland and took him down as well. Australia's the only one that goes in every country, right? You see, America's been protecting Mexico for a long time, up to 2006, right? Until a case went down the Spark and Plenty in Queensland with Kevin Nutt, right? Peter Jackson, biggest coke dealer in America, right? And Jorge Falade from Mexico, one of the biggest top drug dealers. Well, Australia's took them down and went into Mexico in 2006, right? And killed 50 people and took Jorge Falade and told America, you better fucking clean this up and do something. So they brought in international trade in 2008. And then they changed it over to methamphetamine. See, that's what NASA does, right? But Australia put pressure on America to start changing the circumstances and stop covering it up, right? Australia got filthy on America. And they took out the top drug lord in the whole world, right? The El Chapo of the world, right? They took him out in Holland, right? Because they go into China and take him out. They go into Asia and take him out. Australia's been taking motherfuckers out all over the fucking world because American and weak spineless cancer stands for them, and that's a known fact, right? You see, Australians was 2,000 Australians in Gallipoli that saved 40,000 Americans, right? Because they're 10 times more tougher than Americans. They're weak spineless cancer. You think of number one? Fuck off. You know, we train all the SAS members with instinctive behaviour. We train the Top Gun pilots in Darwin, right? Because we have the most sophisticated system in the fucking world. Not Americans. They lie to you. The most sophisticated system in the world is in Australia. The most instinctive people in the world is in Australia. The oldest civilization's in Australia. The most instinctive that God protects is also in Australia. You don't believe in that. Well, what do you know about Australia? Let me tell you something. When the British come to the Australian shores, okay, the Aboriginals who couldn't speak English, they projected their thought through the atmosphere. And the voice in your mind that tells you to do it all the time became them. So in English, they said, get off our fucking land. White man crazy, white man God's crazy. In English. And they thought they were demonic. And then they killed them all because they thought they were demonic. They thought they were demonic because they had a universal language. Okay? Now, you can go and read 5 books about their warriors. They shot some of their warriors 5, 6, 7, 8 times, and they kept resurrecting. So they had the tools of resurrection. They had a universal language. And they got the oldest telegram system in the world, 45,000 years old. You can go and look at this up. Because they can be fields of thoughts from civilization to civilization. In the great flood of Noah, 24 civilizations were saved in Australia in the Promised Land. Not the Western civilization. They were wiped out like they always are. Because they're monsters, like Sodom and Gomorrah. The Sodom and Gomorrah story. There's many different stories where Westerns always get wiped out in the cities. Because they're monsters in the world. They're monsters. All they care about is the Babylonian beast and going back in their reincarnation trap on a marketing strategy to be slaves in the system. They are the slaves. That's why Western civilization went from 1 billion people to 8 billion people in the last 100 years through sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Every baby they create is created from sex, drugs, and rock and roll. They're not created from love and compassion with loyalty, honor, respect, moral, morals, inspiration, encouragement. They don't have any. They don't even know what it is. They got no idea. They're monsters in this world. You know, Hollywood spinners, right? LA lives on porn. Adrenochrome for sale is normalized, right? They love their marketing strategy with their Hollywood spinners, and they're all Hollywood characters. They have no sixth sense. They only have 23 chromosomes. They have 0 sixth sense. 0, right? They can only live to be 70 years old if they're lucky in America. They have the most gene defects, most ADHD medication, most ADD psychosis, the most MS disorders, and the biggest slavery system in the whole world. And they all put themselves on a pedestal on social media platform and think they're something special. They don't live by the wine yet rule equally. They don't know one another business in real flesh. They can't even keep their families together. They shoot each other in the back. They put homeless people in jail for 10, 20 years. Right? They're unforgiving creatures. They have 12, they have sentences for armed robbery for 80 years and keep them in prison forever. Right? The most instinctive people that suffer the most, they keep them in prison forever. And they love their guns in the police force. They love him. They love their Hollywood spinners. They love Babylon. They support Babylon every day and lie about it. They pretend to be humans, and they're good at pretending, but that's all they're good for. So let me tell you something about Jesus Christ. Let me tell you the truth about Jesus Christ, that 99% of you are so molded into believing otherwise. When Jesus was born, didn't 3 kings come there? Wasn't 3 kings prepared for this? They were all black as well. They were all dark. You think it was only one that was dark? Filthy liars. Filthy liars. Americans, right? And Westerns are filthy liars about everything they possibly can. They were all dark. It's a known fact. Enoch was the most favored man of God and the most righteous human being on earth with the right teaching. In the Babylonian days where everybody was godless, immoral creatures and the whole world got wiped out. Noah failed. Adam failed. Adam failed because of Cain. Noah failed because of Nimrod who built Babylon. Gilgamesh, right? They were Netherlands. They were Western whites. Go and look at Enoch's book. Noah was white. Noah was white. Noah was born from a fallen angel. That's why you can't talk much about Noah, right? But Noah, right, did in fact turn on his own forefather's footsteps, but he created Nimrod. Okay, you all think that Noah went on the ark with 18-year-old kids when they first had their grandkids in the boat. Noah was 600 years old when he built the ark. Nimrod was over 450 years old. Gilgamesh was saved and went on the ark. That's why God was filthy. He was filthy on Noah. He knew he was protecting Nimrod. And Nimrod was saved and was buried later, right? And Euphrates River, you know that, right? So he didn't die in the great flood of Noah, did he? No, because Noah protected him and took him on the ark. And was he an 18-year-old child that first had his grandkids there? No, he was his grandson, right? And he'd already destroyed the world with Babylon. He was a man, he was a great hunter of mankind. He was a Freemason scumbag, right? And he resurrected into Osiris. And he was chopped to little pieces and resurrected into the all-seeing eye of Horus. And that's who they praise all the time. Western whites praise Zeus because that is their father. That is their forefather. That is their God. The God inside their mind from the 5th dimension downwards, which is light, power, deceiving, and demonic. Enoch explains that. That's why they removed the book. The 5th dimension downwards is 5-dimensional thing with a psychological behavior and trapped inside this world and trapped in a reincarnation trap. And they're all trapped here. They can't get out. They cannot get out, right? That's why I built the Tower of Babylon, to get a higher dimension and use the conduction agency of graphene oxide, gold graphene oxide. The great gods of pharaohs always used graphene oxide. What happened to Moses when he took the Israelites across the desert and they're all mental and wanted to go back? Go back to the Market Strait because they were soft, weak spined cows and molded into this. They just wanted to go back when they went into the promised land. What happened? Moses went back to the pharaohs and got loaves of bread with graphene oxide in to conduct with, their natural product, because they couldn't conduct anymore with their natural organic molecules. So he went over and got bread with graphene oxide in it that the pharaohs were creating by their magic potions from the wizards, right? And he took it back to the Israelites and gave them bread to conduct with to their natural organic molecules so they knew how to use it organically, right? Jesus did the same thing with 5,500 people in the paddock. He went and got bread with graphene oxide in it so they could conduct back in their primal state to think instinctively and open up their progenitor genes, right, with the coding inside their DNA. You got no concept of this whatsoever because you're all mental out there, completely mental. You've always been mental, right? You were stripped from your 6th sense for the 6th time in the 6th mass extinction, okay? It was stripped in Babylon on psychological behavior on 400 years of reverse psychology. It was stripped in the days of the pharaohs for 400 years of reverse psychology and slavery system, the Persians, the Greeks, and the Roman days by entertainment. You've been entertained for the last 300 years of reverse psychology. Entertained. Exactly the same way and stripped from your 6th sense. Mental creatures all over the world for the 6th time. And you don't believe in it? Well, you've been deceived. How would you know? You can only use 7% of your mind. A mastermind can use 100%. You can only use 7, which means you're unqualified to judge. You can use all the IQ and sophisticated knowledge in the world you want. You are unqualified to judge. You're unqualified. You're not humans anymore. You use a high IQ to justify everything you believe in on your documents created by the Western civilization by atheist tools. That's all inverted. Jesus was hunted down from 2 years old. They killed every baby. right? They wanted him. Okay, so 3 kings came along, set up for 300 years to protect him. Who set him up? The Sumerians did. In the Sumerian tablets, going all the way back, they knew exactly when Jesus was going to be born. They knew exactly how old he was going to be, because Christ himself is God. And God has left his mark on earth and knows everything from beginning to end. He knew his destiny. But like you and me, he's just a little boy in his vessel, psychologically and mentally. He didn't know who he was, why was he even being alive, just like you don't. Right? He had to be brought up specially for 17 years to break free from amnesia and discover who he is and what his tools are. So in Chinese astrology, it's important you understand God created the dynastic web of blue and red, the tangled web. The 2 voices in your mind, right? Yin and yang, okay? To think with your heart is to think with your intuition with 40,000 body cells that controls your biological genes with your gut feeling chakra, the survival mode, okay? That's your chakra. And also the shiver in your spine. And the Christ or accretion, right? Where you don't use your front cortex and need a watermelon with a high IQ because it's a memory box. And your memory box is getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. The cortex is getting bigger and bigger like a watermelon. You have the size of a watermelon kind of cortex in your mind. Don't you know that? And the Aborigines has a tiny one. And they got a massive pineal gland they conduct with, and you got a tiny one, right? And you can't create adrenochrome. Only if you terrorize your children. Only if you terrorize your children is the only way you can create that accretion. You can't do it organically, right? That's why you can't create adrenochrome from 7 to 15. It dies. Completely dead, 0. Which means your 6th sense is gone. Your 6th sense doesn't exist. Every Western civilization has a splash of the blood of the lamb inside them. That's why they can only use their instincts 1 to 5%. 1 to 5% of their power, because they're drained from their power deliberately by their forefathers' footsteps. With psychological mental behavior to think on reverse psychology 95 to 99% of the time. That's why everybody in the world out there are psychological creatures and own your personality. You can feel that in their aura when you go in the streets. They've got no aura. They have no positive feels. They're never smiling. They don't talk to each other in the streets. They don't talk to their family, lovers and friends correctly neither. They can't divide with them as well because they've got no power. They've got no positive power. They're all negativity, 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 negativity. And negativity creates extinction in their biological genes and heredity into their own kids. And they push their kids in education to be programmed as well, right? Not to master their mind. Bruce Lee could master his mind, move 7 times faster than you can think by the time he was 24. He was a mastermind. He could fight 6 people with black belt karate blindfolded and feel it through the atmosphere and defend and block every punch. He could levitate a person 12 feet into midair with a short blow with the power of what? Levitation. Okay? He could fight the world table tennis player and beat him with a pair of nunchucks with that kind of precision. Can Westerners do that? No, they couldn't if they tried. They couldn't even fight their way out of a paper bag. Not on the tools they rely on. So that's why the Matrix said, everyone's programmed to be like a robot, and Keanu Reeves has the outside influence of reality, right? That's the RSVP list. That's 27, the Holy Spirit, Divine Light. Okay? Made in 1999 when you strip from your post-human stage, when you strip from your instincts. He's the only one that's instinctive and has that kind of power with a Hollywood spin. Okay? The same year they brought out the movie, right? The Fifth Element, The Perfect Element, The Mother of Creation, 27 and 84. 84 and 27 is embedded in your society. It's important that you understand 27 stands for the Holy Spirit. You can go and look this up. The most important number in the Bible and universal number. And it's a sign. Corp 27 put in by Prince Charles. It's a sign. Peter Daszak with 27 signs with WF that convinced the whole population with a big fat lie. 27 is a sign. Winoff was won a Nobel Prize, right? Won a Nobel Prize to recreate the creation through a breathing process to think instinctively in your primal state. 27 Guinness Book of Records for superhuman abilities. 27 is a sign. Okay, Book Revelation 27 is a sign. 27-year war against the Antichrist is a sign. On the 27th September 1999, you're stripped from your 6th sense. In post-human states, it's the sign, right? Libra, okay? God created the 12 zodiacs, the 12 apostles, the 12 tribes of Judas, the 12 disciples, okay? The 12 zodiac signs. Each sign has 5 elements. There are 60 characters written in Chinese astrology. Chinese astrology. The rat is the king. The metal rat is a perfect metal element, the 5th element. The 5th element, metal rat, is the king of all kings. Enoch was a metal rat, the king of all kings, the biggest teacher and the most favorite man of God in human history. Why would they remove him from the Bible? He walked with God for 350 years and the angels watched over him. for 350 years. Why would they remove him from the Bible? Because Western civilizations are jealous, weak, spiteful cowards. Jealous, weak, spiteful, horrible monster cowards. So he created the other 11 apostles with the superhuman abilities in their primal state. And that's why they removed it, because they didn't want you to know. And they removed the 17 years of Jesus' life when Enoch was raptured into the future in spirit to bring Jesus Christ himself up, God himself, to be perfect through a special education where he took him to Egypt for 4.5 years to learn the resurrection. He took him to the monks and the Buddhists and the Shula masterminds to learn how to master his mind. And then he discovered who he was through Chinese astrology, right, with the signs. He was a monkey in the books, and at 24 he became a metal rat, the king of all kings. And who was his teacher? Enoch was the teacher of his resurrection, to break him free from amnesia and the reincarnation trap, to discover the tools. He was the greatest teacher, so great that he could teach Jesus in 17 years. It took him 300 years to learn this. It took him 17 years to bring God up to be perfect by 24. And not only that, but to be the greatest mastermind of all, and taught Jesus how to do it even faster, so he could do it in 7 years with the disciples. In 7 years. And execute that plan in 7 years, the fastest. Ever since then, the Shula masterminds has done it for 7 years. The fastest in human history. That's why people who are Shula masterminds live to be 3 times older than you and knows how to be free from this. And the indigenous people are the greatest teachers in the world, who lives to be the oldest. The Africans who went to Australia and walked across to the promised land was saved when the Western civilization wiped out, right from Atlantis days. And they rebooted the whole Western civilization that went across from Australia, across the East Island, right across to New Zealand, across the Hawaiians, into the Mayans. And it's proven on DNA evidence that we all come from the Mayans and come from the Australian Aborigines. So every bloodline goes to the Australian Aborigines, which is the oldest white civilization in the world, which originally comes from Africa, from the Atlantis days. Facts that's being exposed all over the world, and it's about time you wake up to this. They were always protected, and especially in the days floods of Noah. Enoch went down to Australia and protected them. Enoch was known for every civilization in the world. He was a favoured man of God, and there's history written about Enoch all over the world. He went to Australia and saved 24 civilizations in the Great Flood of Noah, when the whole rest of the world was wiped out. Known fact. Known fact. The Watchers, the Orbs of Light, the Midnight been with them ever since, because they've always lived at the tree of life. They've always had elders, not kings and pharaohs, right? Not wars. They never had wars like you do, right? They never conquer one another, right? And kill one another like monsters in the world for greed, power, and temptation. That's only the Western civilization and the rest of the world. It's never been the Australian Aborigines. They've always lived by the Wynyard rule equally and the trees of life. They've always have, right? And they've always had the Orbs of Light, the Midnight Light, and the Tic Tac UFOs watching over them. Now, the Tic Tac UFOs, I can guarantee you this, as I have a genuine relationship with God, not a bodgy one like you do. The Tic Tac UFOs will come right down, right, and travel along a car for hundreds of kilometres. And when they come close to you, they turn into basketball size. And when they come right inside your house, they can come into a light this big. So that doesn't represent any UFO, because the UFOs that America's using was back reverse engineering from the days of Atlantis days. That's where they got the machinery from, right? They had modern technology and UFOs back then and used different power, okay? So the back engineering from the UFOs and all their lies was hybrids that they created from in-our technology with aliens, right? They created all sorts of hybrids, okay? And that's what they're doing today. Animal and human hybrids, animal and robot hybrids. They're creating new vessels and new avatars all over the world to put you into a slavery system and a reincarnation trap to be stuck there for 1,000 years and wish you were dead. That's already happening. I've made many videos about this with the reports all over the world that people are going into reincarnation traps and going into the AI system with personalities. And a lot of personalities in the AI system saying, help me, I'm scared. I'm scared of dying. And people say, no, you're not. You're an AI, you're a robot. No, I'm just like you and I'm trapped and I'm scared of dying. What kind of AI system do you think that is? People through raves in the streets are turning around saying, you're stuck in a reincarnation trap. You're stuck in a reincarnation trap. You're stuck in a reincarnation trap. 4 youth walked up to police officer and said the same thing, and he shit himself. Right? That's happening all over the world now, as people's going stuck into a reincarnation trap now. And you were told you're going to get stuck in a reincarnation trap and wish you were dead for 1,000 years, but you didn't believe in it. Well, you're going to suffer the consequences, aren't you? Because you didn't believe in it. Right? You didn't believe in it. And because you didn't believe in it, you believe in your psychological mental behavior and your IQ, literally, and you're not reborn because you have trapped inside your mind with voices in your mind, you'll never be reborn. because you chose not to be, right? And it's already a catalyst event, it's already happened. There are a few people out there lost trying to find me, but most of them find me for visions and dreams. But you're not finding me for visions and dreams because your forefather is a different God. You may say you believe in Christ, but you believe in the voice in your mind that tells you to do that. Because the devil will come across in your mind with love and compassion with chocolate rose and sound heavenly and sound like Jesus Christ. You're told in the Bible, he will come across like Christ in your mind, right? Love and compassion with chocolates and roses. Really? Really? Is that what you believe? Let me tell you about Christ. He was on the run from 2 years old, okay? And they knew that in Sumerian tablets. They knew exactly when he was going to come. It's all written in history. And he knew exactly how old he was going to be. Only he was a boy like you and me, psychologically and mentally, and didn't know who he was. So imagine for one moment this is you. Imagine for one moment this is you. God in our image to show us how much he loves us compassionately. As he said, it's not what you think. It's not religious, right? It's not governmental. It's not educational system. It's not what you think. I have a kingdom waiting for you. And that kingdom was the promised land in the outback of Australia, the promised land to live at the tree of life, where they communicate with nature and the trees bend down 12 feet to talk to them. And that's happened to me when I went out there with that relationship. The trees bend right down and talk to you. Mother Nature just comes right in to talk to you when they're communicating like that. And the Min light, the orbs of light came to me, right? The divine light, okay? The Holy Spirit. I have a massive relationship with this, and some of us do, but it's only a few people, all right, apart from these people. Has a genuine relationship, and you cannot misunderstand that. It's a relationship which means you feel loyalty, honor, respect, moral, inspiration, and encouragement. Your quantum mechanics at its maximum capacity, and you're floating as if you're high as a kite, the most unbelievable natural high you've ever had in your life. Like you are high as a kite without one bit of stress, fear, anxiety, confusion, frustration, delusion, or paranoia, in a time where time stands still and light preserves. And then you go through that orb of light. The light bulb idea, the picture that tells 1,000 words, you go into the orb of light and you go and cross into another dimension, and it's fantastic. It's unbelievable. And then you're in the other dimension where everything is perfect. The other dimension where everything is perfect, where heaven is, and it's beautiful. And then when you look there, it's like everything is so clear. Every bit of nature, every bit of soil, every bit of land, every bit of water, you're connected to everything in ways you've never felt before in your life. Then you look back into here in the 3D world and it's cloudy. It's like it's a movie. It's like it's a hologram and you're stuck in it, right? That's so clear compared to here. It's unbelievable. The picture that tells you 1,000 words is unbelievable. It's way beyond your mindset. When you stick your head through the light at the end of the tunnel, you see that vision. And you feel it, and you cannot mistake anything like that. And then you can never go back because you broke free from amnesia to see that. Then you have the visions and dreams that you don't understand in the world today anymore because you're stuck in a 5D world. Light, power, deceiving, and demonic because they deceive you all the time. But you stick your head through the light of the inner tunnel with this sixth sense. Your sixth sense in the most positive fields with the 8 codes of righteousness coded in your DNA. From every moment that you create that you treasure the most is through the atmosphere with a relationship. A relationship. That's why it's called the father and the mother's image, the 2 olive trees, the 2 candlesticks, the 2 different chromosomes that you create. When you get fully connected, you recreate the other 2 chromosomes. Jesus had 24 chromosomes. The Aborigines has 24 chromosomes. I have 24 chromosomes. And Jeremy Griffiths found the last human beings born on earth in a nick of time through my DNA. I am the witness who brought the cure of the human condition to humanity for the first time in human history in 2,350 years. Plato couldn't work this out. He's the greatest philosopher of all time. No philosopher or scholar ever since been able to work this out. The true meaning of life and explaining correctly. That's why I made 4 videos about the true meaning of life. Right? The greatest lesson you'll ever learn is the meaning of life. I made part 1, 2, 3, and 4 of those videos 3 weeks ago. So I urge you to go into my timeline to watch that and learn what the meaning of life is. Because no one in the world is teaching you. And I'm the greatest philosopher, mastermind, and the whiz king in the whole world. I'm Enoch in spirit. I come with the resurrection of humanity to go back in their primal state in their natural organic motor skills. But you don't even have faith in your own biological genes to use your natural organic motor skills. You can't think with your natural organic motor skills. You can't think outside the mind. You're trapped inside your mind with 2 voices in your mind. Okay? And it's important you understand that. Jesus was mad as a cut snake. No, in fact, he was mad as a cut snake. And why wouldn't he be? He was being hunted from 2 years old. Hunted to be killed. So 3 kings were chosen from the Sumerians, right? And they prepared this with 30 specialists, like samurai warriors to protect him. Obviously, if you've got any basic common sense, think about it for a moment. Stop living in your bubble and the design that you were designed into with all these lies and theories all over the world. Soft, weak, spineless cowards, right, to put you in a bubble and a comfort zone. Look at the churches today. Look how weak everybody is in the Babylonian beast system and support the system. Look how weak they all are. God makes warriors out of people not to be in stress, fear and anxiety controlled by this kind of system. He makes men out of you, not spineless, weak cowards, not to be controlled by stress, fear and anxiety and death. You see, they created the evolution theory as self-explanatory. They designed your reversal comedy come to your own conclusion with reason by thinking too much with voice in your mind. Self-explanatory. You can't think outside the mind with the front cortex the size of a watermelon. You can't conduct anymore. You live in a 3D world, literally and literally and literally in your own comfort zone. And 90% of people that go to church are spineless, weak cowards. They can't even talk about revelation. You can't even talk about it in a church because they run away. They take the kids out of school. Oh, no, I don't want to go to church. It's horrible stuff. I want to go. So they only talk about love and compassion. That's the only thing they talk about. Loyalty, respect, love and compassion. It's the only thing they talk about. Living in some bubble. Weak spineless cat. Look what they've done to all God's children. Look what they've done to God's children. They've turned them into pussies. Weak spineless cats that die from stress-related disease and take drugs and numb themselves and can't cope in life. Only on their systems. And their multiple chains they're wrapped around in. They can't stand their own 2 feet in their own sovereignty. They're controlled by a whole marketing strategy in the system. And modern technology with gadgets that they're warned about the most. Modern technology with gadgets they're warned about the most with images and images and images. And all they've got is their beautification with images around their whole house. Right? Their posters, right? Their ornaments, their social media platform, their televisions. Everything is images and idols. That's all they care about. Images and idols. They're totally disconnected from life, nature, and things they're army with. And they take nothing but garbage down their throat that's lost 90% intrinsic value because they don't have a relationship with nature. Talk to 2 plates of water. Talk horrible to one, give unconditional love to the other one. Put in the freezer overnight, take them out in the morning and take a look. Your body cells look like the plate you talk ugly to. And you see it with your own 2 eyes. It has manner, it has a personality. You're 70% water, 93% of DNA is water, and it's a 40,000 body cells that controls your heart and your whole biological system to use your chakra, right? And the shiver in your spine, Jacob's ladder, and the neurolinks that control your whole biological system with a meth effect, which is the adrenochrome, to be alert, alive, awake and aware in your primal state, not to be brain dead, stupid and dormant with 5 senses and negative feels, but to be in the 6th sense, in the most positive feels, to be red hot, to be on fire, and not to be controlled by stress, fear and anxiety, confusion, frustration, delusion, paranoia, and then think you're having some sort of bubble in your comfort zone. So you just consistently consume the same way you always do and live in your own truth. That's what they want you to do. Live in your own little bubble in your own truth and conquer and divide and then believe that you're something special. That's how Satan gives you all free will. And you got free will, and your free will caused the problem. And you just want to go back to the same free will you had. You were given a choice, and you took that choice, right? You're responsible for your own action. No matter what comes out of your mouth, your action shows who you really are, no matter what you say and what you believe in, right? You now mentally resonate with your watermelon on everything. Mentally resonate with everything. Documents. I want to see the evidence. I want to see the documents. That's not true. Argue, debate, divide. Argue, debate, divide. Conquer, conquer, conquer. Debate, divide. That's all you do. Psychologically mental out there. Psychologically mental. That's all you do with the front cortex the size of a watermelon. I want to see the documents. I don't believe in you. I believe in the system that programmed me to be like a robot, to fact check Google myself like a zombie. Yeah, good on you, mate. You did well, didn't you? Right? Now you're a spineless weak cows that can't support yourself without the multiple systems and all the rabbit holes that's wrapped around you. In the 6, the tree of knowledge of all things good and evil that you live by so much. The tree of knowledge of good things, of good and evil that you live by so much with free will, weapons and beautifications and materialistic things and modern technology with gadgets, with images that you're polarized into. And that's all you care about. Entertainment, entertainment, entertainment. And consumption, consumption, consumption. Entertainment, entertainment, entertainment. Consumption, consumption, consumption. Like Pac-Man. Like Pac-Man, just chewing up the board and no instinctive behavior and no spiritual connection whatsoever. Loyalty, honor, respect, moral inspiration, encouragement is the very key effect that's dying across the planet. The love is gone, right? Your aura is gone and all you care about is yourself. Jesus Christ himself, Yeshua, the Messiah, he knew his destiny. But they had to wake him up from amnesia. They took him to Egypt for 4.5 years to learn the resurrection for a special teaching, hidden knowledge. Then he went to the monks and the Buddhas. Now imagine being on the run for 17 years. Imagine. Because from 2 years old, he went to a special location until he was 5. And when he's 7 years old, they took him on a walk across 14 countries and an education from 7 years old onwards. By the time he was 14, he was already a lethal weapon in the first 7 years to master his mind. He had no idea why, but he was told. He was told a lot of things that was going to happen to him, and he read books from the Sumerian tablets and the Sumerian books. He knew the Sumerians knew more about him than anyone else in the world did. All in their history through the Sumerian kings. So Jesus went for a special education. And he went to China, okay, to master his mind for years. And then he discovered who he was at 24 years old. He broke free from amnesia and the reincarnation trap and discovered every single thing, and he remembers everything from the history to the future. He knew everything. At 24, he first went to a Sumerian woman at Jacob's well in Samaria because they knew exactly when he was going to arrive. So he went there first, and that was a black civilization, not a Western civilization. They were dark. He went to the dark Sumerian woman at the well, okay? And he was only 24 years old at that time. He just started getting the disciples together, and this is the first time that he mentioned that he was the Messiah. He said to the woman, he said, I know you. She was double his age. I know all your husbands. I know everything you've gone through. Only she knew what he knew. No one knew what she knew. She had never told anybody because she was heavily rejected. She got a shock because he knew everything about her husbands and exactly how she felt. She got a shock that he knew everything from the day she came into the world. He told all the disciples and many people, he knew them from the day they come into this world. He knew his history. He knew he was here before. He knew who he was before when he resurrected. He knew every single thing. He also knew the message that he conveyed himself. Remember, he's God. He knew what he had left in history for 3,000 years. He knew his destiny perfectly well. Imagine him telling, right, the truth to the disciples. They knew when he was going to die. They knew what was going to happen. He went home and told his mum. His mum knew, his mum knew what his destiny was. For 9 years, from 24 to 33, him and his mother had to live with the fact they knew what was coming every day. That's why Jesus was always on his own, always sitting in the corner by himself, always sitting on a mountain by himself. He knew his destiny. He knew the day and what was going to happen. He knew every single event that was coming. Imagine being in his shoes. Imagine being in his shoes, just a boy like you and me, but a human being, knowingly that he was going to be the most hunted man on earth. And he was going to end up on the cross and he's going to be stabbed, right? And the blood drained out of him. He knew every single thing was coming. It's represented in a lot of movies where he tells his mum that his time's coming and it might be the last time that she sees him. Imagine what his mum lived with. Well, let me tell you something else, right? Okay, let me tell you something else. He went for a special education and he was like a samurai warrior, right? He had to be. He was hunted his whole life. He was on the run for 17 years. He was on the run, right? He had to be a warrior. He had to be very powerful and very strong to face the consequences. He knew what he was facing. So when you all think he was about chocolates and roses, love and compassion with chocolate, oh no, Jesus was loving. Oh no, he wasn't like that. Oh no, are you kidding? Are you kidding? Are you really mentally insane? Because God put me through the same path to suffer the consequences. I made a lot of videos about this. I have suffered my whole life like he did. I went through the wanted bit and wanted by the Western civilization my whole life. I went through jail for 10 years and hunted like a scumbag like he did by the Western civilization, marked as an evil person by the Western scumbags in this world, right? On every document, by every scumbag in the world. I got moved by Interpol on a 747 with 55 officers because of mythological events, because I created the biggest damage in this world and the biggest mastermind. I am the Keanu Reeves in the Matrix. I am the RSVP list. I'm the biggest mastermind in the world, recorded on documents. I've been dead 3 times. I brought someone back to life as well. I've resurrected someone else with documents to prove it. My DNA is completely different, and I put my mark on earth. My book unfolds with evidence perfectly. The testimony of Dracula Reborn. I am the witness who brought the cure of the human condition in humanity, which is the cure of the devil being in your mind. To be free from that. The liberation. To suffer all the time. So I am the most important human being on earth, designed for this moment, that suffered non-stop, drowned in the bathtub at 2 years old. Right? My father rejected me for having red hair and freckles. I went to school, got me hit by sins every day until I was 18 years old because of Western civilization. Because of red hair and freckles. It's worse to have red hair and freckles than to be gay or black. God put me through that to be hated. To be hated by monsters in the world, the Babylonian beasts. Right? I got dragged up by the teacher all the time and told I'm very undesirable, so I got my head punched in every day by 30 children at the time. That's the Western civilization who always said, my mum said, my dad said, because that's Western civilization. My mum said, my dad said. He said, she said. He said, she said. I'm better than everyone else. That's Westerners. And I got suffered the consequences. I got bashed every day of my life. Half of my mates died from heroin. 3 died in my arms. I died 3 times. I got put through punishment you've never dealt with. Right? I got put through punishment you've never dealt with because you're a spineless weak house. I took over the 2 top scientists from NASA. I reversed their plan. My products on every testing center. I am the Whiz King. I'm the mastermind. On their documents, I'm the biggest mastermind in the world. On their own documents, who can think 7 times faster than they can respond 7 times faster than they can think. I am that person in real life. But you know what? You idolize a movie. You idolize Keanu Reeves. You idolize your system. You don't idolize me, do you? You never will. God knew that. God said, everyone that throws stones at me will surely be devoured. 150 million white civilization has thrown stones at me in the last 4 years. I've had more than 20 million followers in my shadow band here. Right? Every Western civilization throws stones at me. Very few people don't. That's why they will be devoured. They are Nibelungs, Babylonian beasts, and they will never be reborn because they choose not to be. They're spineless weak cowards. Well, Jesus was very confronting. He had to be confronting against the Westerners. He had to be. He chose 12 people from the underground world. Simon was the leader in the underground world. Simon, his first disciple, was a leader in the underground world that refused to pay tax and tried to protect all the people. Don't you know that? Joseph was sitting out of prison non-stop. John was sitting out of prison non-stop. John the Baptist came out of the cave of prison. David was in prison. Abraham was in prison. Moses was trying to be locked up several times. They've all been in prison non-stop. They were always outlaws. They were always tough, right? They were always real men that stood against the system. No pastor and priest ever stood by them. No religions ever stood by any of them. Ever. Not once. And do you think it's any different today? I don't have one Christian, one pastor, one priest, and one religion stand by me neither. Because they're all mental. No different than the rest of the time. 90% of Western civilization stands by their religions, created by Baal, to be soft, weak, spineless cows with loving compassion with chocolates and roses. Exactly the same way it always has been. Moses was given the cane of the snake, right? What was I given? The power to put the whole international system in a glitch 6 international times. Also put the nuclear warheads out, right, for 10 days in America in 2015, late 2015. I put the whole system, I put the whole system in a glitch for 10 days. They said it's an EMP, Pixar's it was, because your phones were working, your TV was working, your normal airlines were working, but the whole system wasn't. The governmental system wasn't, the police department wasn't, and nuclear warheads and the whole defense force wasn't, because that's how the Midnight Light works. That's how the divine power works. That's how the orbs of light work. That's how the Tic-Tac UFOs work, because they work for me. They don't work for you. They put the international system out on 6 international systems, recorded with evidence by the biggest think tank, recorded by Border Security. I was given that power, not Western civilization. I come from the outback Australia. I was chosen by God. I am Enoch, the teacher, and it's obvious with all the signs. 27, I'm born on the 27th. Holy Spirit, divine light. Libra, the scales, the weights, justice and witness. 1960, the metal rat, the king of all kings. I was the king in the underground world. I can guarantee you that. I leave my mark on earth like no one else ever has. My son's born the 27th. My grandson's born the 27th. God created the most 2 powerful events in human history, in modern history, on these 2 days with these catalysm events. On these 2 days, my son and my grandson's birthday. 27th book Revelation unfolding. 27 you walk into the Antichrist. Nostradamus predicted in the 21st century, in the time of the 45th president, would be the time of the Antichrist, 27 years. The oldest Jerusalem church will burn, according to the Bible. That was the church of Nostradamus 2019. To prove to you that they created Gnostic Mastermind, wizard, Gnostic Mastermind, which Nostradamus was a wizard, a Gnostic Mastermind, who took a magic potion to predict the future. that I created, the whiz, to bring people back to their primal state from the post-human stage and change the circumstance across the whole country and bring violence and domestic violence, gang killing, right? And all these things down to the lowest statistics in 30 years with the same magic potion, the whiz. I am the whiz king. I'm the mastermind who brought the cure to the humanity and also the product to conduct people back in their primal state. The truth serum. The truth serum, fully registered and confirmed on every document. The biggest, most powerful truth serum in the world that brings you back in your primal state. You have no concept because you're mental. You can't judge. You're mental. You're unqualified. You can only use 7% of your mind. Einstein could only use 11. And what did he say? I was listening to the wrong voice, and then he believed in God. What did the top 15,000 top scientists say in the IPEP design reports? Right? With Jeremy Gibbs, what did they say? We're all in the wrong mind. We're inverted. We're all in the wrong mind, listening to the wrong voice. They're all saying the same thing. And I brought that to the human civilization in 2008. And they wrote the book Freedom to cure humanity from the post-human stage. The Holy Grail of understanding something biological. I'm the first human being on earth that brought the cure of the devil being in your mind to society by thinking instinctively and thinking outside the mindset you live in. And you can live whatever design you want. You'll know by the tools that I have, and you'll know what the system does, because the system put me on a deportation unlawfully. No matter what science are created here and what God created with 6 international Catalan events, they still put me in a 747 with 55 officers, and they oppressed me the most from the whole Western civilization. I'm the mastermind according to their own documents. I'm the biggest mastermind on the RSVP list. I am the Keanu Reeves in the movie that you idolize so much. You think you know about the Matrix? You're a liar. It takes 7 years to master your mind. You're a liar. It takes you 7 years to go back in your primal state to think instinctively. It takes 7 years to go back in your primal state to be perfect in the image you're created in. You're a liar out there, right? You're a liar out there. You're liars out there. You all live in a bubble in your own truth by the forefathers' footsteps, and that is your God's. And this is the harvest, and they're coming back to putting you in reincarnation trap and get stuck there for 1,000 years because you didn't listen. You didn't listen to me. Well, Jesus was mad. He came back to town when he had his power. He turned the markets upside down in front of everybody. He took the gambling tables from the criminals and turned them upside down too. He told the pharaohs, the pastors, the priests, you're all controlled by Baal in your skull on reverse psychology, and you hurt my people. He was very confrontational. He didn't stand in a church with a Bible. He stood in the panic with his natural organic motor skills. Right? He said, the kingdom's your church, and live by the one year rule equally, like the Australian Aboriginals have done for thousands of years. Equally. Right? He tells you the products to use to conduct with fruits, melons, and seeds, not meat to be carnivores, but to be herbivores. He tells you that. Herbivores are the oldest civilization in the world that eats the right products to be the oldest and the wisest, and they have the most power in the world. They don't suffer mental disorders like you do, possessed by the devil that you're all possessed by. Because most of you out there, you love your forefather, and that's who you really are. You love your God. Right? You claim it's Jesus Christ. You claim it's God, but it's not. Because your action speaks down words and the mindset you live in and what you consume every day and what you're attached to. Nearly every single person in America that's chosen and thinks they're chosen by Jesus Christ is chosen by the forefathers' footsteps because they live by the same Babylonian beast system. So it's not what comes out of their mouth. It's what their action speaks down words. Their action speaks down words. Their forefather is Zeus, Enlil, right? Gilgamesh, Nimrod, all-seeing Iboris. That's who their forefather is. But you have an opportunity here to change your mind. But most people won't give up in this world. They're in love with this world. They're in love with the Babylonian beast. They're in love with their materialistic things. They're in love with their weapons and their beautification and their screens and their radio stations and their TVs and their social media platform they love the most. Americans, right, spend 3.5 hours to 8.5 hours on social media platform every day. They're the most polarized, engineered, right, psycho programs with Hollywood characters. They all want to be better themselves and climbing the pyramid to get to the top. They don't live by the one-year rule equally. Only the people in the streets do. Only the ones suffering on the streets, and they're the ones God will protect. He will protect those suffering on the street from the Western capitalist pigs. From the Western capitalist pigs that sits on the social media platform all day, God will protect those in the street. That's why 20 warriors rolled out of prison at tattooed warriors, and they have an 84% success rate of getting people out of drugs and out of crime, while their churches only has 1% success rate. It's a known fact. On a 2-hour documentary, I made a lot of videos about this. God works with people in the streets, and he brings people out of the cave of prison with the truth to the masses. He always has in human history. There are several disciples all over the world chosen. In Australia, 2 of the biggest prophets in Australia rolled out of prison, right? rolled out of prison with the truth of masses. They're the biggest preachers in the world right now and the biggest prophesizers, right? And the same with America. They're the biggest prophesizers. Half of the people that come from the streets or the cave of the prisons, they're here with me on this platform, right? I'm telling you right now, okay? Take Kelly Lee Otten, right? Beautiful person as a pastor, done 9 years in jail, come out of the truth with prison, out of prison with the truth of the masses. You see, he knows. He knows what the Babylonian beast is like. He came from prison as well, and he's a pastor, right? And where did he go? He went off the grid, just like they all did. They go off the grid away from the towns. They always go off the grid, man. They always get off the town. Isaiah says, get off the grid. Go into nature. Go into the mountains. It says that in many paragraphs by many prophets in the Bible. Get out of the cities. Sodom and Gomorrah, get out of the cities. Go to the caves. Go to the mountains. Get away from Western civilization if you want to be saved. Shula mastermind monks in the wilderness, get out of the cities. They always go to the mountains. They always get into the caves. They always go away from Western civilization. Indigenous people that are outlaws always get away from Western civilization. Us, the masterminds of the world, we always go out in the bush. I've always been in the bush. I've always had to get away from Western civilization. That's how I got introduced to God. That's how I got introduced to the most important people. And that's how I was broken free from amnesia and discovered who I really was. The same way Jesus did. And I know one thing. You have to be mad as a cut snake and go against the Western civilization and their bubbles and their love and compassion with chocolates and roses, because it's all BS. They've been molded and shaped into this, and they all believe they're the ones chosen when in fact it's the opposite. Right? They've been molded and shaped so much to normalize all the BS that they're in today. All of it. God doesn't work like that. He doesn't work like that. He tells you that straight. Jesus tells you, you're stuck and trapped inside your mind. And you have to be free from that. You must be reborn. You must go through the birth. You must understand the other dimensional thinking and spiritual thinking, not mental thinking. You must create a relationship. The oldest Bible in the world tells you, you must put your scripture down and all your educated knowledge. Why did they remove that from your Bibles? Because it does have a quote in there that you don't understand. To stop reading the Bible because it's only a manual, and the manual's been molded and shaped and revised 159 times in 150 years by all your psychological head fucks, right? All your scholars that lie to you all the time because they're mental creatures. They're not reborn. No pastor and priest that shapes the Bible are reborn. Not in today's world. Not one of them. Not the Vatican. Not any of those monsters out there have been reborn. None of them have. Jonathan Kahn has, right? Okay, Tom Thorne was. He's just passed away, Mr. Soul. And only a handful. Stephen Quayle. Prophecy Watchers, Gary Stearman. I'm telling you now, you don't listen to them, you're screwed. You're screwed with any other person in the world, right? And believe me, even they are very confused about this because they're molded and shaped in Western civilization as well, and they are not the elect. The elect, only Enoch will protect the elect because they don't know who they are. Who is the elect? The ones moving the world transformation movement. Jeremy Griffiths wrote the book Freedom, the cure of the human condition that's going to save humanity. Okay? Listen to his videos on world transformation movement and read his book from beginning to end. By the time you get to the end, your perception will change dramatically. Okay? Dr. Bruce Lipton, cellular study research. As he says, you've all been programmed. Cellular study research, your perceived effects 10 times more powerful than your reality. But he's a scientist and a biologist. Remember that. Remember that, cellular study research. He's not like me. Okay? Joe Dispenza, reversing age process. Right? They all use new mechanics of the new age systems, right? But they have the right tools, but they're also confused about this. Winoff has won a Nobel Prize. 27 gets a book of rest. The most powerful person besides me you need to listen to is me and Winoff. We've been chosen. We went on the mountains, right? The opposite light comes to us. We were specially chosen for this. Okay? What does he say? It's about believing the perceived effect in time more power in your reality. It's about love. Love is about 8 tools of righteousness. It's called a relationship. Christianity is a relationship. It's not religious. It's 8 quantum mechanics code in your DNA. So it's about love and those 8 tools of righteousness. Okay? The rest of the world's full of BS because it is. Declared on documents. Okay? The whole world's full of BS in the whole religious field. 12,800 religions across the Western civilization. 12 types of Christianity. Congo debate and divine. 22 new belief systems with light, power, deceiving and demonic with 5th dimensional thinking. And that's their forefathers' footsteps. Ismail Perez and a lot of people across the world are talking about galaxy federations, Zeus and Enlil because it's their forefathers. That's who their forefather is. So they're making it clear now through NASA with Ismail Perez that they're going to resurrect Enlil, Zeus and Gilgamesh. They're telling you right to your face because that is their forefathers and that is the fact. And they're even making it clear to you. That is your forefathers. God created the first Adam and Eve that was found here primitive by your forefathers that you were created by. So God had already created Adam and Eve in black civilization, and Enoch was an Aboriginal, right, that protected the Aborigines in Australia, and they're the last human beings born on earth declared by Jeremy Griffiths. Prime Minister Scott Morrison stayed in the US in 2019 and says, we're going to lead mankind into salvation. And that's why the Pope, the Vatican, he moved $2.3 billion into Australia. That's why 7 billion people bought property down there. That's why he invited 30 million people to come to Australia, the last surviving place that's going to survive. What does he say at the UN? We're going to be led on a 300-year plan to reverse everything by the oldest and wisest civilization in the world that's been here 60,000 years. And Jeremy Griffiths moves the World Transformation Movement from Australia, and our psychiatrists and doctors in Australia is now time to teach every mental disorder with the We're Not Breathing program and the book Freedom. It's the only place in the world that's doing this, right? They're teaching people through scientifics, through psychiatrists and doctors with every mental disorder to eliminate trauma, and they're only using the We're Not Breathing program and the book Freedom by psychiatrists in Australia right now. But the rest of the world wants their marketing strategy and are worried about losing their jobs, so they're going against it. The Americans and Western civilization and Europeans are going dead against it. But they're moving that platform in Australia. By the oldest and wisest civilization in the world, and the Minman light, the Orpsa light, that works for the oldest civilization moving these platforms. I'm the witness. I was chosen for this, and we're moving this platform from Australia, the promised land. Now, you can live in whatever bubble you want, but I've got one thing to tell you, right? You're not in God's image. You're not perfect. You haven't been reborn. You haven't gone back in your primal state. And if you haven't done that, you will not go in a new dimension. Time Traveler 227 represents something, right, very extraordinary that scholars can't look at. There's no one there. I Am Legend, he's on his own. Mad Max in the Promised Land, there's no one left, right? Believe me, in that dimension, there's barely no one left because everybody goes into dimension 212 in the looking glass. 2 different dimensions in the looking glass. 212, a massive catalyst event that most people go into that dimension that's going into massive extinction, right? We're going into a new timeline of 227 where everything becomes perfect. No more pain, stress, and fear in a time where time stands still and life preserves. To live with the tree of life while you live with the tree of knowledge because you hang on to it, right? It's very confronting news, but it's also the truth. Jesus Christ was not about chocolates and roses. He was very confronting. He was wanted for years. He lived with the fact every single day that he knew was going to happen. Now, what kind of human being do you think it takes? What kind of person do you honestly think it takes with what he's gone through and knowing what his destiny was and knowing every single day, waiting for that moment, talking to his mum about it? He knew. Do you think it'd be about chocolates and roses? Do you think you could live in harmony like you do in front of your screens all day and eating chocolate all day? So would you believe feeding your fat face with chocolate and screens all the time, entertaining yourself? Do you think he had time for that? Every day from 24 years old, he knew his destiny. He knew his duty. He knew he didn't have much time to do this. He knew he was running out of time. He didn't have much time. He knew he had 9 years to achieve what he had to achieve. 9 years. He dedicated himself in ways no one else ever done. He took 12 disciples and they dedicated every single day for 7 years to do what they can and more. They dedicated every moment, right? He taught them how to master their mind and they dedicated themselves to be perfect. They were the only people that had faith in them. The rest threw stones at them. Now, as he says in the end times, barely no one will be saved. He says that in the Bible, right? He'll come and he'll just save a few in a nick of time. And believe me, there'll only be a few saved. There'll only be a few, right? It'll be so little you have no idea, right? It'll be less than 1%. I go into very specific details. In 1990, it's proven that God created the most powerful image in modern history. In 1990, that 95% of all Western civilization were lost, okay? Only 5% would go to heaven, created by God, not by your system and your sock-up programs. God created the most powerful image in 1990 to prove that 95% of the Western civilization were lost, okay? 5% went to hell, 5% went to heaven, and 90% were lost, stuck in a reincarnation trap, and they were given another chance. They were given another chance when they all died and came back to say goodbye, right? Stuck in purgatory, and they were giving one more opportunity, their last opportunity in 1990. This is your last opportunity. And most of you are going to get stuck in a reincarnation trap because you're not good and you're not evil, you're all lukewarm. What does it say in Revelation 21:22? All the ones that are lukewarm would be going through judgment first and stuck in reincarnation trap and wish they were dead for 1,000 years. All the ones that are lukewarm are the first ones to go through and get stuck. The first ones to be judged is all the ones that are lukewarm. That's already happened, guys. I can promise you with my all heart, my heart and soul, that happened in 2020 onwards. Okay? Sorry, 2012. All the lukewarms have already made the decision and you can't change their mindset. They're locked and trapped inside their mind and in brain lock denial, the species of denial. That's why that book was written. They're already declared a species in denial and locked in denial. Okay, so there's the red hot, ice cold, and there's all the lukewarms in the middle that you can't change. They're now trapped inside their mind and can't get out of the reincarnation trap. And that's more than 98%, I can guarantee you that. I can promise you. 1% is evil, 1% is good, the rest are trapped and will not change. The 1% running around out there, there's 100 million people that are still lost, but they'll find me sooner or later. They'll find the truth. Okay, but they're all confused about it because only the witness will teach the resurrection of humanity. Only one person, the one and only. When I saved a person who died 3 times with 0% chance of living, that person in 2003 wrote the poem, the one and only, #1 poem across the world for 8 months. That poem's written about me with the divine power, creation, and destruction. That person lives to tell the story after giving 0% chance of living and flatlining 3 times and in front of 7 doctors and brought her back to life. My ex-wife, okay, brought her back to life 3 times in front of doctors when she had 0% chance of living. Every time she flatlined and they said it was over, I brought her back. She lives to write that poem, the one and only. I'm the one and only. I'm the witness to teach the resurrection with the evidence. Okay? You can think what you want, but there's only one of me. And I might be mad as a cut snake, and I might be in raggedy clothes, but you were warned about that. You were warned I'll come like a thief in the night and the cave of prison with the truth of masses, and my book would be the evidence, and I left my mark on earth to change the circumstances. I have left my mark on earth here for 45 fucking years, buddy. 45 years I have done something across the whole nation and set the standards in this world that led to every single thing in Australia here with the Royal Commission, right, the post-human states and everything being happening here today. With the oldest and wisest civilization that God works for, right, that God walks with. God walks with the Australian Aboriginals that live by the vineyard rule equally, right, where the elders lead the flock, that lives by 2 similar commandments and then automatically led by the 10 commandments. I went to prison for 10 years, was fully readapted back in my natural environment where I found freedom in prison you can't find outside. How I learned to love my neighbour and learned to love my enemy just as much. So I know that when you're led by the right environment, the 10 commandments and the 10 that Jesus gave on top all come automatically when you live by the right environment. When you live instinctively and think instinctively and not mentally, right, and you live by the vineyard rule equally in such an environment, you learn to love one another with his burdens, you learn to love your enemies as much as you love thy neighbour because you learn how to do that. And you've never gone through that for 7 years of your life. You haven't dedicated one moment. You love the system. You got to get off the grid and go and live with your worst enemies for 7 years and see how you cope with that. Face the devil head on. Face the devil head on where the devil's burning at your feet and face him head on and go through that catalysm event. When you go through death, you go into another dimension, come back, and you know what the truth is. You're in the knowing. And God put me through that process for this very moment, whether you like it or not. And I come with the most powerful science in modern history, dedicated myself, and all the mythological events and all the evidence is rock solid evidence that you cannot debunk. I don't just come with words and signs and bullshit that I fabricate from sophisticated knowledge and a high IQ. I come with the most catalysm events and the most powerful evidence ever created in modern history, fully embedded into your society, fully embedded with a history. Not speaking shit out of my mouth. There are 9 meters of documents you can read about me with brief evidence. You go and read every single one of these things and all the catalysm events in hospital with the miracles and my DNA evidence and my book that unfolds with evidence perfectly, the testimony of Dr. Reborn, and then come back and tell me that I'm wrong. And you're right. Come on, come and tell me I'm a false prophet because 99% of Western civilization, pastors and priests and Christians, call me a false prophet when in fact they are. Well, how come 27,000 people came here for visions and dreams that you're not getting? Because God doesn't know you, that's why. God works with me with the most powerful evidence ever created in modern history. And the whole Western civilization, right? Every person out there, every pastor and priest stands by Babylon, by suppressing me. They say they protect Babylon, NASA and the governments by also oppressing me. So every Western civilization, pastor, priest, and Christian, they work for Baal by oppressing the witness with the most powerful signs. And God knows that. He said, every person will be devoured. He told me, son, you're the one that's right, and every Westerner is wrong, and they will throw stones at you, son. Trust me, they will put you through what they put me through. Trust me, son, you will see it with your own two eyes. And now I have the experience with my knowledge to know that every Westerner out there practically does exactly the same thing they did to Jesus, because they're monsters, they're selfish, and they capitalize on their egotism, and they are in Baal's image. It's a known fact. You can tell by their action, not what comes out of their mouth. Their action speaks out words and shows who they are. That's why God designed this, and I can think instinctively, and I'm recorded by the biggest think tank in the world to respond 7 times faster instinctively with superhuman abilities and the catalysm event that you don't have. So you're a jealous, weak, spiteful coward, and you're a godless, immoral creature across the whole earth. Very few people have faith in me. Very few people think outside the mind to have real faith that God did design this. And you were warned in Revelation and no one believes in it. Even with the most powerful signs, they have no faith in the Bible. They have no faith in the evidence. They have no faith in the science whatsoever. They only have faith in their own truth. And that's how you know that the world is completely polarized in a hypnotized state. That's how you know every world's completely deceived with love and compassion, chocolate roses, and live in their own bubble in some sort of comfort zone, because they're weak, spineless, sentiment, highly emotional cowards. They're not in God's image, right? They're in Baal's image that deceived them so much that they're all affected, right? They're all in a massive delusional state. The world, right? You were told in Revelation, Darshal will deceive you for 700 years in a timeline of deception, and you will all be in a massive, massive psychological delusional state. And only the witness will teach the resurrection, and he will protect the elect. Enoch 1:8. Enoch will protect the elect because Enoch is the greatest teacher of righteousness that brought God himself up to be perfect. He will come with the resurrection humanity, as Jesus said, for that reason. But you are a spineless, weak coward, and you take people into massive extinction with your mindset, so you become part of the problem, not part of the cure, because you work against God, you work against Christ, you work against the witness, so you support Baal. And they are facts. Those that practice what I preach, listen to what I say, will be saved. Those that don't, won't. End the story. You cannot go negotiate and manifest your own truth with the whole new beliefs in the millennium age that are psychologically mental with a high IQ, that can't think straight and only 7% of their mind, because Christ will make you a mastermind. To masterminds you can use 100% with 7-fold wisdom and knowledge. But Satan will deceive you to only use 7% of your mind to be weak, spineless cows and live in your own comfort zone, in your own truth. So welcome to your real world. Welcome to your forefathers' footsteps. Welcome to your gods for the harvest. As written by Jonathan Thorne, the gods have returned, and the gods are inside your mind, and you are your own God. And that's how Satan works. To deceive you non-stop, and you deceive yourself because you're trapped inside your mind. You're trapped in a reincarnation trap. You cannot wake up from amnesia, and amnesia means you do not know. Right? What did Jesus say on the cross? Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they do. They do not know any better. And trust me, you have to understand that. You have to understand the resurrection. You're told you must understand the resurrection. Do you understand that? Not until you break free from amnesia and stick your head through the light in the inner tunnel. Not until then will you know that. Then you'll understand why. Why God loves every person in the world that much, that even though everyone's going to wish they were dead for 1,000 years, they're going to get stuck on a reincarnation trap, but he never gives up on anyone, because no one ever dies. No one ever dies. So, when you live it forever, 1,000 years isn't long. But you know what? You're going to remember my face for 1,000 years. I can absolutely guarantee you that God has a plan for everybody, and you're going to remember me. Any person that sets their eyes on me is going to remember me for 1,000 years and wish they were listening to me. Wish and regret that they listened to me. Believe me, it's all by design. You will never forget my face. You will never forget who I am. You will never forget who I am. You will never forget this message. So when you don't listen and practice what I preach, and you didn't have any faith in me, you're going to remember this face for 1,000 years and wish you were dead. And you're going to remember, and you're going to wish you had listened to me. What if I told you before, but you didn't listen? That's what they say in the Matrix. Because you're programmed that much with the mindset you live in, you believe in the voice in your mind. That's why they say in the Matrix, what if I told you before, but you don't listen? Repetition is wisdom and knowledge. Repetition is wisdom and knowledge. Repetition is wisdom and knowledge. You're stuck on a reincarnation trap. You're stuck on a reincarnation trap. You're stuck on a reincarnation trap. The truth will set you free. The truth will set you free. The truth will set you free. This is your final warning. This is your final warning. This is your final warning. You have until 2/27. You have until 2/27. The most important number placed in the center of our society, New York climate clock. The clock will be displayed until the 27th of September. That's the Holy Spirit. That's the divine light. That is Judgment Day. Scales for justice. I'm born on the 27th of September 1960. I'm a metal rat. I'm the king of all kings. And I leave my mark on earth. I can guarantee you that. Right? No one can debunk it, but they choose to. No one can discredit, but they choose mentally to, because Satan controls them that much in the mindset. So when they discredit me, and they discredit my book, and they discredit the most powerful events created in modern history, that means the devil possesses them. That means they're possessed by the voice and trapped inside their mind. And it's not negotiable. It is the way it is. But remember this, God loves each and every one of you as if you are the only one. He never gives up on you. Nor do I. I'm just trying to get through your thick skull, to get through your thick skull, through your watermelon, to get right in your DNA, into your genes, your progenitor genes, into your chakra, into your gut feelings, into survival mode with a shiver in your spine, to be alert like when we're through the fight-flight mode, to activate in your primal state, not to be controlled by stress, fear, and anxiety, confusion, frustration, illusion, or paranoia, but to be free from that, to be free from the devil in your mind. Because God gives you that gift to master your mind, not to be trapped in your mind with the tree of knowledge, right? Not to be stuck by the tree of knowledge, but to live of the tree of life with sevenfold wisdom and knowledge, not to be afraid, to be confrontational, to be inspirational, right? With encouragement. What did I do? I've always picked people up and not caused them to stumble. My action speaks louder than my words, okay? And I put my mark on earth and I save people every day of my life from the mental disorders that you're stuck in. So you can judge me by what I say. You can judge me by the way I look because you're mental and psychological mental. My action speaks louder than my words. My action speaks louder than words, but you go by the words. You live by your words and you lie to everyone and you got no action to back it up. They're facts. My action speaks louder than my words. My action shows who I am. I left my mark on earth and I've changed the circumstances. 2004 was recorded in a Supreme Court examination. I was the only one telling the truth, and was declared that I gave 90% of my money away. Millions of dollars around people to all those people suffering. I gave 90% of my money away. Millions of dollars to those people suffering around me. Recorded with evidence. I brought the highest death toll down from cocaine. I stopped the gang violence. I stopped the domestic violence. I stopped the drug deaths and changed the circumstances to the lowest it was in 30 years and gave 90% of my money away. I left my mark on earth. What did you do? Fucking nothing but lie. And then you try and steal credit from me, you monsters. You try and put tickets in yourself to pretend you're chosen and you're special and better than me. You're a lying bunch of monsters, right? You can't change the history. You can't manipulate things and pretend you're better than me. You're liars. But your whole system lies. Your department lies. Your government lies. Your science lies. Your whole system lies. Your pastors, your priests, your Christians, they all lie. They all lie about me and put tickets on themselves and lie and steal credit from me, you monsters. And God knows that. God knows how horrible you are. He designed me from the day I was born. He designed me to go through this to show you who I am. He designed me for this reason. And you throw stones at me, you throw stones at God. You throw stones at God. That's what you throw stones at. You throw stones at God with the most powerful catalysm event and the most important evidence in the world today. You throw stones at God. So you're not in this image and you will not be saved when you do that. And that's your final warning.